Street. But a couple of headlines as we're looking at, man, in the city of Baltimore. Another one bites the dust. Another one bites the dust when we're looking at, of course, the Baltimore City Police Department. Once again, Baltimore City Police Department. Another Baltimore City police officer indicted. Another Baltimore City police officer indicted. Police officer is charged in drug corruption case. Now, when I heard this, I thought they were going to say it was Debbie McMillan, the niece of Debbie Owens, who fled after the murder of Officer Will Torbett. You do remember Officer William Torbett, because we haven't forgotten, and God knows his family has not forgotten the way our brother from Edmondson Village was laid out, sprayed out, and got chalked there outside of the, what's that, Select Club Lounge right there on Pack and Franklin Street. We've not forgotten that his killers are still out there, that the officers, Parley, was the other three, Williams, was it? I know where I'll get the other three names. That's not a problem. Craig, and I believe there was one more. But again, I thought maybe perhaps it was Debbie McMillan. It looks like you have an officer, 25-year-old Ashley Roan, and when you look at all that she was charged with coming out of the Southwestern District, agreed to access law enforcement databases, listing informants and other sensitive information for drug dealers, and provided Social Security numbers to him as part of a scheme to obtain false tax returns. Roan was taken into custody Friday and will not appear in court until Monday. If convicted of all charges, she faces a mandatory minimum prison sentence of 17 years, U.S. Attorney Rod Rosenstein said. Goes on and says Roan was being held in federal detention, has been suspended without pay. Such suspensions are routine for all officers charged with crimes, according to a police spokesman. Family members of Roan and Erica Hughes, her 25-year-old roommate, who was also charged in the alleged tax scheme, could not be reached for comment. No attorneys were listed in court records for the defendants. But clearly, this story has wings and has to go up the ladder in terms of supervisors, because she couldn't access these databases of any computer without passwords, without supervisors, and all others as well. So the question is, are they trying to use damage control on just this one officer and her roommate and not expand the net? And of course, when you look at the coverage, how the coverage is much different from this story and so-called crimes in terms of the security guards and security officers, correctional officers at Central Booking, that this story, of course, broke on a Friday. So they wanted to make sure that, of course, you probably forget come Monday morning. So they broke the story on a Friday. And, of course, the Sun paper, make sure that they did not put it on the front page of the Sun paper. I believe it's on page 2. They figure most of you are not even going to stop to view page 2. You trying to go straight to the sports, most of you brothers. And sisters, you may be reading the front page, but they don't think some of you are even going to read the second page regarding, again, corruption in the Baltimore City Police Department, which goes to, of course, the head, which is Anthony Batts. And you can go beyond that and go all the way up to your governor if you like, since they say that is a state agency. But let me go to this clip, courtesy of WBAL, talking about this story. And again, this officer that was charged, but it's another one, bites the dust in the city of Baltimore. And what does this do to the morale of the good police officers down there when this has been allowed to, of course, be almost standard operating procedure? But I understand it's almost every week you got officers that are resigning and officers that are leaving the Baltimore City Police Department right now at record numbers, and it's not being talked about. So Batts clearly is in over his head and does not know what to do when you look at the corruption that's in Baltimore City Police Department and continues to seem to be growing. But again, this puts other officers out there at risk in terms of them going out doing their jobs, ordinary citizens at risk in terms of them going out and doing their job. And you can't paint this picture of just trying to put it on a black female officer as they tried to do with the prison scandal in terms of black correctional officers, but not looking at, again, when you had the two ladies on the mounted horses unit, Kelly and Jill, and, of course, as I mentioned, Debbie Owens, who was allowed to get out of town before sundown after the death of William Torbett. And I won't even mention your former police commissioner, Bill Fell, and his bad guys with guns. But let me see if we can pull up this story talking about, again, police officer indicted. And will the net expand, or will they try to limit this story? But listen to this from WBAL, and we'll come back with more of the State of the City.
Federal charges in a case the government calls an appalling violation of public trust. 11 News reporter George Lettis is live outside police headquarters with more on this. Good evening, George.
Well, Kate, good evening. City police leadership acknowledged today that they never saw any red flags when it came to Officer Ashley Roan until an informant started talking. While working as a patrol officer the past 4.5 years in Baltimore City's Southwestern District, federal agents say 25-year-old Officer Ashley Roan helped an alleged drug dealer sell heroin by providing information and armed protection while in uniform and in her patrol vehicle. According to an affidavit, Officer Roan helped the alleged dealer find a safe place to sell and provided early warnings before police searches. Authorities say the dealer paid her $500 for the power and protection of her badge and her service weapon.
This type of corruption, any type of corruption, but this type of corruption besmears the badge that we so proudly wear, and we will not tolerate it.
Officer Roan is also accused of accessing a police database to identify informants to make sure they would not do business with her source. Little did she know, authorities say, the alleged dealer was a police informant who fed this information back to police starting in February of this year.
Meetings were surveilled and monitored beginning in March, and the charges ultimately were returned today.
Officer Roan was arrested Friday morning. She shared a Pikesville townhouse with her roommate, Erica Hughes, who was also arrested. Roan and Hughes face identity theft charges for allegedly accessing names, social security numbers, and birth dates from that police database so they could receive fraudulent tax refunds. But authorities say the women never received a dime of someone else's refund because the same informant told police about the scheme and then pretended to help the women file the false tax returns.
For these officers out there that think that they can get away with any type of corruption, we're not done.
And their roommate, Erica Hughes, faces at least 2 years in prison. Officer Roan faces at least 17. We're live in Southwest Baltimore. George Lettuce, WBAL, TV 11 News.
Welcome back. Again, listen to the state of the city. That was the story regarding, again, the Baltimore City police officer. Again, Erica Roan, in terms of, again, her indictment. Ashley Roan, and, of course, her roommate, Erica Hughes. Question is, how deep does this story goes and how deep does this wire goes regarding, again, the corruption? How high up does the corruption go in the city of Baltimore? And speaking of the city of Baltimore, saw in the paper this morning and on the news last night, heat wave. And of course, be careful out in the heat wave, again, as we talked about yesterday. Look out for our women, look out for our children, look out for one another, and last but not least, look out for your dogs, dog, if you know what I mean. Look out for them dogs, dog, but in the scheme of things, the dogs are not the first ones you should be looking out for, but look out, of course, for those, again, that may have underlying health conditions and those that are not taken care and making sure that they replenish the fluids that they lose out of their body. So let me get back into, again, this story regarding the Baltimore City public school system. And all of this goes back to Andre Alonzo. All this go back to the fake white liberals to talk about transform Baltimore at a time when our children have to go to school and they have water fountains that are still covered. In 2013, they still have water fountains that are covered with trash bags or cut off with signs saying for hand washing only, do not drink. Now, do me a favor. Go to the zoo. Google the zoo and see if there are any animal habitats in the Baltimore City Zoo. Go to the aquarium and see if there are any animal habitats, tanks, you name it, that are shut down because the animals don't have access to water. Here we are living in the so-called free state, living in the free state, which is the feast state for most of us, black, brown, red, yellow, and white. You living in two Marylands where black children and brown children and poor white children are going to Baltimore City public schools, and they don't have drinking water from fountains that are lead-free. That's an indictment on the city leadership, on the state leadership, and on all of those that claim that they really care about your children. Show me where you put your money, and I know where you really, truly care and what you really, truly care about. Now, you think if these conditions were existing at the Baltimore Zoo, that Don Hutchison, that your governor, your mayor, and others would sit back and allow it to happen? You think the Friends of Drew Hill Park and these other fake white liberals, do you think that the Parks and People Foundation would sit for that? But you sit back and let them continue to intentionally poison your children, and you say, Brother Muhammad, what you mean is intentionally? If they've been doing it for this long and they haven't corrected those schools, then you know it's being done intentionally to perhaps see what type of effect it will have on your children. But again, heat wave, water shortages leave some city schools dry. At least 4 schools ran out of drinking water midweek during the city's first heat wave, school officials confirmed. The Baltimore Sun received emails saying that schools hadn't received deliveries from water companies. Who got the contracts? Who got the contracts and the contacts from Deer Park, which is probably the biggest distributor of the waters in Baltimore City Public Schools? Question is, who's supposed to be handling them contracts in the procurement? Is that Joe Overton? Is that, what's his name, Overton, that we talked about yesterday? But nonetheless, says that the Baltimore Sun received emails saying the schools hadn't received deliveries from water companies. For years, school water fountains have been off limits because of contamination worries. Now, this is a lie. See how some paper try to minimize it? Ain't no damn contamination worries. It's because of the high levels of lead that's in the water. But because they're black children and brown children and white children, poor white children, they say due to contamination worries. They're trying to clean the damn language up. But they're going to tell you about what they got to do for the Chesapeake Bay, what they got to do for all this other body of land and water around here from the inner harbor. But not when it comes to your children and your schools having fresh, clean, uncontaminated water, man. But it goes on and says again, school officials said 3 schools contacted the district Thursday morning regarding their water supply. Mount Royal Elementary, which is in Bolton Hill, which is supposed to be one of your better elementary middle schools. Arlington Elementary School. At Roland Park Elementary, and looks like Polytech Institute was out of water all day Thursday, according to those who wrote in from the schools. Though officials said they didn't receive a report until late Thursday, man. But who's responsible for that? Isn't that Andre Alonso talking about how he's giving power to the principals, man? Who are the principals of these schools that they go in and they got water in their offices, but the children don't have water? So it becomes an indictment on the city leadership. Some of you say, but why you want to talk about the mayor? Bet you them animals at that down City Hall that use that watering, that little watering and faucet system they got in front of City Hall. You go down to any harbor, they got water, and they're going to tell you, don't turn the fire hydrants on in your neighborhood. Well, where do your children have water parks that they can go and keep cool, man? And I believe I don't even know if the pools are opening today or not until a few weeks, maybe a week or so from now. So what are the children to do if the pools are not open, man? But it's indictment on the city leadership in the city when you have schools that don't have water because the water fountains are cut off. You travel this state and see if that's existing in any other jurisdiction, man. You travel this state and see if that's happening in any of the other 23 counties where they have trash bags over top of their water fountains, man. It got to be the laughingstock of the state, the laughingstock of the region, the laughingstock of the country, but yet they can find money for the Grand Prix. They can find money to talk about planners expand the vision for the Grand Prix this year. They can find money to lay new tracks, but they can't lay new pipes for your children. And you walking around with your chest out, proud, when you see the conditions existing in this city. You say, what manner of people are you to allow this to take place? They can lay new tracks downtown, but they can't lay new pipes to get that old piping out of there, to get that high level of lead out of the water, which has a direct link to violence in a city that is the most violent city in the country right now. And at a time when others were fighting this, Children First, Delegate Jill Carter, and others, they were saying, we got the problem fixed. Your governor came out and lied and said the problem is fixed. Your city health commissioner, Peter Bilson, who wants to write books about how they poison black children, went on to Howard County to say the problem was fixed, and the problem has not been fixed. The problem has not been solved. But they should be charged for neglect, for benign neglect of the Baltimore City public school system. These fake white liberals, ACLU haven't taken them to court for this. NAACP hasn't taken them to court for this. Urban League has not taken them to court for this in terms of the high level of lead. National Action Network or any of the rest of them. Build, getting money from the Baltimore City public school system with their contracts. These fake ministers, fake white liberals again coming in, safe and sound, fund for educational excellence. And I saw where that old no good Jerry Baum passed away recently. I will not shed a tear for him. I saw that old no good Jerry Baum, who oftentimes was writing policies through that old other thug, Bob Embry, giving the policies to whoever the superintendents were, and then they would implement the policies inside of Baltimore City public schools, oftentimes to the detriment of the children, man. oftentimes to the detriment of the parents and the children. So if you want to know why your schools look the way they look, because of these organizations like the Fund for Educational Excellence, Safe and Sound, if I can go on and on and on, some of these others, Annie K.